Hi everyone, we got a surprise Tuesday afternoon stream. Doing a lot of experiments with paint and primer and carving. I got an electric knife carver McDeely. Having enough fun with the foam. I feel like it's something I'm going to be doing more of than I anticipated. Although I'm a bit disappointed with the results. I read the instructions very thoroughly, but I'm not, I feel like it's not sharpening the knives like it promises. I'll get back to that in a minute. This was just sitting there and I was thinking about finishing it up. I'm like, you know what? Got the day off. I'm gonna finish this thing up. The various layers of primer I put on it have obliterated a lot of the details, so I'm just going in by hand and adding some texture to places. Completely redid the eyes. Redid a lot of the nose and the lips. This is kind of a bummer. I can't read the chat and have my glasses off at the same time. That's okay. No one will come anyway since it's an odd time. Just finished up revision number 3 or 4 on December's Shadow of Colossus episode. It's a good one, man. Action-packed. It's got a whole kind of narrative arc to it and everything. Rising tension, catharsis at the end. Well, my kind of catharsis, which is silly catharsis, really. But given what I had to work with, I was happy with what I ended up with. Thinking about maybe doing the texture on the hair here by mixing a little bit of sand in with some paint or gesso. I might still do that, but I already started with these kind of, I don't know, stripedy textures, so it'd be weird to just do part of it that way. I'm also being dumb by carving on it after I added some of this texture here that's like the scar that Beaumark has on his neck. It got obliterated in all the priming and sanding that I've done on it so far. I've already squished it at least twice and had to go in and try to re-smooth it out. Still trying to figure out what to do with this thing too. Originally it was going to be for the book cover, but then I decided to go with just the full three-dimensional bust for the cover. But I had already 3D printed this, and my best idea so far is to make food-safe molds and cast chocolate coin bits out of it that I can give away at my at conventions and stuff. I assume that's allowed. I don't know. Do you need a food handler's permit to give away chocolate bits at a convention? I'll bet that technically the answer is yes. But I wonder how seriously that is enforced. and if there's any ethical obligation on my part. This song is saying, "It's the law, it's the law, it's the law." That's quite the timing. Huh. So every time my blade tilts towards the camera, boom, it goes dark. And that's annoying. There's got to be a way to tell it to not automatically do that. I went and I turned every automatic thing I could find off, and it's still doing it. Remind me tomorrow on the stream if I forget to grab my son and say, "Hey, you played around with this camera more than me. How do you make this stop happening?" I think, I'll probably get more subtle with the hair detail as it goes into the back, just so that will kind of naturally give a soft focus look, like there's a little bit of blur to the image. I assume that's a thing that they do on real bas-relief, but off the top of my head I can't think of an example. I mean, back in the olden days, before photography, I don't know that the concept of focus was a thing in art, as in like having sharp details in the foreground and softer in the background. I mean, I know like Da Vinci and others of that time period were doing the atmospheric effect where things would become bluer, mountains and trees and stuff in the distance would become bluer the further back they go. I don't know if that's strictly the same thing, and it become softer and blurrier as well, but that was an effect of just atmosphere, not a lens that was doing a thing. So I don't know if like in portraits and stuff that was ever employed. It's an interesting question for anyone who knows about art history and such. The way film and photography has changed our perception of reality and filtered into other media is interesting. Like the way in video games we still do lens flare when that's like, that doesn't make sense. Our eyes don't see lens flare, but if we don't have it, it seems weird to us. And like dirt on the camera lens, blood on the camera, like that, all those kind of weird little quirky shorthands. what would a slightly three-dimensional medallion cast in whatever work on? Like, it can't be a bookmark. It's too thick for a bookmark. It's too big to be a pen. What else is a round thing like this good for besides a chocolate mold? I mean, it could be a refrigerator magnet, but I don't know. I kind of get the sense that unless a thing actually has some kind of use, just a decorative item, that's kind of a... I don't know how many people actually care about those things these days. I guess enamel pins are kind of making a comeback. Pins in general. But yeah, this won't work for those, I don't think. I should ask some of my friends who do conventions regularly if they have any thoughts. In fact, why don't I do that now? Got nothing else to do. Might as well put a blast out there that I'm streaming as well. Let's see. Question. Made this Dell. Oh, I should hashtag that, shouldn't I? I hate hashtagging everything. Am I spelling medallion right? Huh. Medallion. Hashtag character. You guys know if you're watching this later on YouTube, you could just skip ahead to where I'm not doing this, right? I hope so. I don't want you purists sitting there watching me type. I mean, I don't care for my sake, but for your sake. Character from book. Hashtag Scarred King. Going to cast. Oh. Cast it. But is there any kind of promotional? Is that a hashtag? Ah, promotional products. I can make out of it. One idea was doing food safe molds and making Chocolate. But chocolate has a trillion posts. Yeah. Any other ideas? P.S. I'm streaming. Hey, Spiral. Yeah, it does look like the Orin from the Neverending Story. Streaming right now. Okay. Copy. I should put something prettier here. So close to be done with this guy. Oh my gosh, Facebook is just joking. Come on, album. Work in progress. Tweet. Too many letters to tweet. Dang it. All these stupid format limitations. Okay. All right. Chore is done. I should have done that before I started, but you know what? You know what? It is what it is. Yeah, I do want to do a super duper deluxe version of the trilogy with all 3 books together, and I was thinking of doing a cover in like a semi-flexible, like rubbery resin of some sort, and then literally just so I get the print-on-demand book, and then I would just glue the awesome cover over it, and it would actually be dimensional and have like this in the middle of the cover. So that's definitely an option. Yeah, I've always loved the Neverending Story book cover design. I think that had a big influence on my aesthetic tastes. I don't know if it's because of that movie, but certainly I've always been drawn to covers, either for books, movies, games, anything, where it's just like one cool kind of logo thing as opposed to a big illustration. And why originally I was going to do all the books as kind of a medallion, a cameo of the character on the front, but yeah, I realized after I printed it out and was examining it that I don't think it's a bad idea, but the art of doing cameos is a whole art form that I would be stepping into as an amateur, and I don't want my books to have amateurish covers. So that's why I decided to just go with a photograph of the full bust, and then I'll just have this for other promotional things. Now that I've worked on this, you know, a lot more, I'm definitely learning more, but and I'm happy with it. I just know with all the rest of the characters there's going to be other new challenges, and it's just going to be a huge time sink as opposed to doing the full bust. I still fall prey to getting sucked into time sinks that are on the side. But I'm also more conscious when they're happening. I don't know if that's led to better decisions yet. It's a relatively recent phenomenon, as I've been getting more and more pressure to get these books out and to finish up my Cutscene Subversion Project video series. All of those things have made me really examine my time usage. Let's look at our rock experiments from the other day. Oh, excuse me. Trying to stifle a cough and almost choked myself. So yeah, I was seeing what I can make out of this kind of weird melted thing. I thought it'd be fun to backlight it, so I carved into it. I'm going to stick LEDs in there. See if that looks cool. You gonna focus? No? I'm going to do a light thing. Doing both. Alright, whatever. Yeah, I took a bunch of just scraps that I had from the other big rock cliff I was doing, and plopped them around there. Give it a little more context and make it seem like a thing that could sit on a wargaming table. the more I've been looking at research, or research and reference for different rock and ruin forms, the more I'm realizing that doing one video with rocks and ruins would either be super long or not very thorough. So I decided to divide it into 2 videos. I'll do one on rocks and one on ruins. But then I was doing even more research and reference looking, and I was like, you know what, I should just make a mini series out of it where I try to do different types of rocks, different types of ruins, and then I could have a little kind of catalog that you could look up and be like, I want to make desert ruins, or I want to make sandstone rocks, or I want to make lava rocks, you know, whatever it is, and then you'll be able to find that on my channel. That would be cool. A lot of the terrain, like wargaming terrain artists on YouTube have way bigger numbers than I ever have, so wouldn't mind tapping into that market. I mean, I love doing this kind of work anyway. Not that I would ever abandon the sculpting element, but yeah, it's fun to have a nice rounded portfolio. Although they say if you want to be successful on YouTube, you pick one thing and you just do that one thing. And so I'm already breaking the rule by doing lots of different things. That's okay. It occurs to me if I would have maybe sanded this, what is this, styrene, before I glued the bits to it, they'd probably stay on better. Yeah, it doesn't help that I'm leaving these to dry in my incredibly cold garage. So, I glued this all up last night, but it's still very wet in a lot of places. I don't know if this paint is just not going to set. Let's look at it. I did it on a little test piece here to make sure it wouldn't dissolve the foam, and it didn't. And it looks like it dried on this foam, but for whatever reason it's not drying in there. It's still really tacky. I wonder if it's just because the airflow is less because it was like suctioned down. There's holes in there which the air should come through, and whatever. Let's see, I'm gonna put it on this by my heater so it can heat up. Hopefully not too much. Other test stuff I wanted to do. Was doing some paint tests on this guy, and now he's got kind of a more brownish base coat. And let's see, ground cinnamon or natural grout. Wait, is this literally grout or is this paint that's called grout? Eggshell finish. Oh, I don't want that. We'll try cinnamon for now. Not the best dry brusher in the world, but I'm in such an experimental mode now. I'm not focused on details yet. This side that I hacked out like super duper fast, I think looks better than this side, which I spent 5 times, maybe 10 times longer on. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm learning. I mean, slightly different looks. Like I said, I need to sit down. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out, hopefully I can remember to do this tonight. I'm going to print out some reference of different types of rocks and just see what I can do to get close to those references. Okay, I think I want to, do I have, got this shade. Try. This stuff is just so ridiculously expensive. I'm gonna mix myself up a coat here in a minute, but I want to see a side-by-side comparison. Okay, so I'm just gonna do it on that half for now. And now I'm gonna make my own, which is a mixture of paint. Dark paint, hopefully. Burnt umber. Suddenly I can't remember. Was it just water? I know I want to mix in a drop or two of dish soap. What's the other thing? Maybe it is just water. Hold on. I'm gonna have to look this up. 1 second.
Yesterday slapped me broadside. Would you like me to call? So they sat at a glance by themselves for a while. Would you like me to stay? He said. So they sat by themselves by the shore for a while, wondering if the tide washed away the feelings of love and what again would you like me to play? Don't let the sun burn the smile from your eyes.
Sorry about that. I have too many recipes swirling around in my head. Yeah, it's matte medium is what I needed. Silly. Okay. Not paint. Not you. And brown ink. Ideally. Which I have here. But I need a wrench to open it. It is that stuck. There's a wrench. Okay. There is actually some in there. Cool. Is it into a thing? It's super cold in here. I need to move my little heater closer. Okay. So, a bit of water. Glug, glug, glug. Drop or two of this. Oh, actually, so flow aid should work, which I think I have. Flow aid, here it is. Okay. Keep that out for next time. Good little scooper for this. This is the medium that the ink will dwell inside of. This is not the best bottle to mix this in. How much is that? Go a little closer to half. Could always add more if it's not thick enough. Well, that is purple. What day is it? It's the most magical day of the year. It's Surprise Stream Tuesday. It is my tradition to do a surprise stream on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. A tradition that started about 45 minutes ago. Okay, it's gonna need a lot more water. Like I said, I'm remembering ratios and ingredients all wrong because I've been researching washes, I've been researching, what's the other thing? I guess the base coat thing using Mod Podge. Okay, I'll make sure to remind you in a year. That seems nice and runny. Does it run into cracks properly? That's the question. It's too gummy. It's like a gummy bear bouncing here and there and everywhere. I think the pigmentation is close to correct. Let's see if I... pour this into another bottle. About half and half. Well, no wonder I failed my bartender exam. Also, I know nothing about alcohol. Other than that, I would be an amazing bartender. Might need to add more ink since I've watered it down so much, but we're about to find out. You think Gummy Bears was one of the best Disney cartoons? Really? I literally remember nothing about it except that theme song. I'm assuming there were probably characters, and they probably had adventures from time to time. Yeah, this is still not runny enough. So let's try some of this Flow Aid. Increases flow, surface penetration, workability of thin acrylic colors. Dilute with water before adding to acrylic color. Too late. Mix 1 part Flow Aid to 20 parts water. The way my brain translated that, all of that was just wing it. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. Something adventures are beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. Yeah, how do I remember that song and literally not remember a single character or plot? you flow more good? It's kind of frothy, but that's because I was just shaking it a lot. I'm sure I could let it sit and it would lose the froth. This would also be something that I can spray through a spray bottle and make this a lot faster. But I already know I could do that, so I don't need to test that theory. Don't remember Duke and Toady? No, not at all. I mean, it's possible. I just remember it because maybe my brothers and sisters were watching it and I was too old for it. You gotta remember, I graduated high school in '93, so that's probably about when it was coming out. Alright, I'll let that dry and see what happens with it. I'm going to go ahead and try that same wash on darker stone, just see what happens. Oh, I'm going to dump it everywhere, see what happens. Turns out, pro tip, when you dump stuff everywhere, it gets everywhere. It's like sand that way. So this is a brownish black. I feel like it could use more ink. Also, I need to mark these before I start losing track of what they are. Okay, so this is Mod Podge base coat. This is black, brown. What is this? Wash. Tailspin, I was right on the cusp, was definitely watching Tailspin. DuckTales, I believe, was their first one, and so I was totally into DuckTales. Darkwing Duck, probably slightly after my time. He-Man, Thundercats, Voltron, yeah. Yep. Mid to late 80s was my prime cartoon consuming days. I think G.I. Joe and Transformers were my favorite. The G.I. Joe episode of Community is one of my favorite things on TV ever. If you have not seen that, I recommend checking it out. Another washy wash down. Okay, I wanted to experiment with this thing real quick. What a mess I've made. So, I have foam under here, freeform air up here, and I thought to myself, what a wonderful world to smash. So, what happens? Rocks fall down, that's what happens. Okay, and then say, pry a couple of these out. What happens? Let's base coat that. If I do that technique, I would probably paint the surface of the foam before attaching the freeform air to it. Although I'm guessing that whatever paint would be pulled up by the clay, but that's worth testing. Chip and Dale, that's right, Rescue Rangers. Watch that. I think I watched things later than most teens did because I was the oldest kid and I had a bunch of brothers and sisters younger than me watching those. I definitely remember loving the Rescue Rangers NES game. That was pretty good for its time. Then Morty, you want me to jiggle for joy? That's the best I can do right now. It's so cold in here. I could shiver with joy. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Again, don't know that I would ever use this because of the time and expense with coating the foam with freeform air. Let's see, is there something different I can do with this one? something I was toying with the idea was doing grout work between tiles. I was actually thinking that might be something that I could do after the paint job, and then have the grout actually be a different color, so that I, you know, if you have the option to have that effect. I was watching, let's see, Wild China on Netflix last night, and they had these really cool ruins, or no, I mean, they did have cool ruins, and I added a bunch of, I started Googling some of the areas that they were showing, but that reminded me that I wanted to get some more reference of Indian step wells, and I was doing that, and that's when I came across this grout that I thought was pretty cool. Like, the rocks were various shades of tan, gray, brown, but then the grout was kind of whitish, but it was very aged too. So I thought, if I painted the rocks and then used a white, like gesso or something, and then just with water wiped it off every, you know, it would just stay in the cracks. I wonder if that would work as a treatment. But I can do that on anything. I don't need to do it on this one because I really like smashing, and I want to smash this some more. I'm trying to think if there's a different way to smash than what I was doing. There's using a smaller tool. Something like this. Pretty cool. Spiral, you grew up on Toxic Crusaders. Oh wow, I don't even know when that was. Was that like mid-2000s or something? The aughts? Or are you really old and that's like the 70s? Early 90s. Really? I mean, early 90s I was still watching cartoons. I somehow missed that one. You're 32? Okay, so you were an itty bitty kid in the early 90s. Could fill cracks with that drywall patch stuff. It's paintable and cheap and easy to wipe off. Oh yeah, good point. I have some right around here. I had it, I pulled it out. Oh no, the drywall stuff I had was dried out, but I have this stuff which is pretty much the same thing but way more expensive because it's made for miniature railroad stuff. And I just wanted to see, is there actually a difference? I can't remember if I ever did a side-by-side comparison, but I do need to do that at some point. All right, come back and dry brush that later. Let's see, does this have the magical part on it? No, yes, magical, magical. I need to reproduce this somehow. I need to figure out how I did it. Was it from jabbing something? Oh, hey Damon, you're a manly man. You probably know what I'm doing wrong here. Here's a knife sharpener I bought. It's the chef's choice, so it's got to be right. I read the directions very carefully. Boy, this plug is not reaching. Okay. It said you want to do it on one side for about 5 seconds, and the other side, and then check for a burr. And when there's a burr, then you do this manual part here. You used it for your miniature work to fill in stuff with snow. The drywall paste stuff. Toxic Avengers didn't last long. Okay. That might be why I didn't hear about it. Okay, so anyway, I do this. When I check for the burr, they say run your finger along it. You should feel a little bit of roughness, which I do. And then this little V-groove one should get rid of that. But when I do that, so it starts out okay, but look, already it's starting to tear. Maybe it's this particular knife, but I feel like when I was sharpening it in its little sheath, which has the little sharpening stones in a V-wedge thing, I feel like it was doing better than with that electric one. Seems wrong to me. Sorry about your ears. You don't need them anyway. They're not that important. Damon says, only hone and sharpen in one direction. Cheap blades won't hold an edge long, but if it'd be better to use the whetstone and some oil. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Leela Rose Foreman says, before you took the really long knife and whacked it in all directions, and then you gouged some sections and pried up others. Yes, that is true, but I feel like I was able to get nice clean cut without tearing for longer. Although, yeah, maybe this is... Anyway, you're distracting me. I'm trying to reproduce this. How did I make that happen? Definitely looks like little fractures. But it's not... Here's the other piece where I was doing fractures. Not there. Here's just what I was just doing, where you just jab, 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 which I don't think looks like anything in particular. There's more jabbing experiments, also look like garbage. Here's bigger jabs. Still don't look great to me. Huh. God, that's upsetting. I've accidentally managed to do two things that I don't know how to reproduce. I did this, which looks awesome, and I did this, which looks awesome, and I don't know how to do either. Maybe different size thing. It's like if it, once it pops the seal of the surface, that's not a good or natural look. Maybe I did something after that. Very 2006 hoodie. Thanks. That's probably when this jacket was purchased. David said there are quick tutorial vids. It takes very little practice. It's mostly about going at the right angle. And to learn, you can make little guide blocks. Don't even need oil. You can just do it in a sink under slow running water if necessary, since you are going to constantly destroy the edge anyway. Try shaving the skin off and then pressing into it almost parallel angle with the tongue depressor or something. Sure, give that a try. Let's see, parallel, meaning like this. Or just gonna try random shapes and see if anything jumps out at me. I wonder, because around that time I was also experimenting with using the Sharpie. Maybe it was just like I had drawn these cracks and then went in and did something afterwards. So let's see what happens if I... Now, at one point I was experimenting with like, how deep can this pen actually dig into the foam? Because the ink is doing a little bit of dissolving down there. Last night on the geology lecture I was listening to, the professor said the word, and I was like, oh yes, that's what they're called. But then he messed it up by saying, but they're just cracks. My list of words that will not come to my brain, even though I know exactly what they are, has grown, I think, to about 40 or 50 at this point. It's not chemical. It's not material. Mineral. Wow. Okay. When minerals do their heat and growing thing into forms, they do it in clusters, and because they're pushing up against each other, the space between that is when rocks fracture and break, they crack along those seams. And he said the word for that, and now it's gone forever. Rip knowledge. You were so fleeting. Okay. What else could be happening here? Shear plains is not the word. The word is, the definition is what those cracks are. So the cracks exist in a solid state. You have a solid chunk of rock, and when water seeps in, it's seeping through those cracks, whatever those are called. And that's what I'm trying to come up with a name for, because when rocks break, they break along those cracks. And that's what causes mass wasting. Or rather, the mass wasting comes from the various forms of decay that the rocks go through, but they go through that breaking at those seams. They're like seams. No, it's not fractures, because a fracture is when it actually breaks. It's before the rock is broken. It's in these cells, more or less. Don't have a coating, no? Somehow, see, what's so great about this is how parts of it are like pushed down and inward, and then you get this kind of shale-y, I don't even know how to describe it. It just looks like something I see on real rocks. Definitely not a splunt. Or a splint, no. I'm just gonna have to watch that lecture again and write it down this time. Okay, what if I just carefully just like pushed parts in and out? I guess if I make these fractures a little more significant, and when I'm trying to perturb the surface, they'll go in a more controlled way. other thing I was playing with was foil. That was somehow doing something. I'm trying to remember, maybe I actually have it filmed on that last 5-hour live stream. I should go back and... I'm trying to remember, did I have these carved when I started that? I think I mostly had them carved, but I'm going to go back and check. Glossary of minerals. Yeah, the word's probably hiding somewhere in there. If I tried to just manually reproduce this, what would happen? So it kind of goes like this. Up like that. It's probably pretty close. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can mute me while I do this. Cleavage face. Again, that's the result of when the rocks fracture along those seams. It's got to be a fancy word for seams, I'm thinking. Probably wrongly, but that's what I'm thinking. God, this knife just doesn't stay sharp. I don't think adding pin lines, cracks is helpful on natural rock faces. But I had to try it. It's probably okay for adding little bits of pitting, scarring. But also probably spattering acetone on there is going to give me a more natural look. Or even wherever my little stabby guy. Yeah, this guy. That could work for some of those really old sandstone ruins or rock faces. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's in northwestern China. I think it's north of the Gobi Desert. It's kind of the end of one of the Silk Road trade routes, and it had rocks and ruins that both looked a lot like this. One of the kind of neat things, let's see, I'll do it on this side, is that you'd have these fairly smooth faces. Again, I'm going to do more of this tomorrow when I have the actual reference with me, but I have, boy, pretend I was able to make a smooth face. Come to think of it, I have to sand it down anyway. I could just start with the sanding. Alright, so you'd have this kind of slightly dimply sandstone up here. I assume it was sandstone. Could have been limestone. But then as it got close to the ground, it had these concavities. It just kind of broke away and had a darker, way more textury, pitted surface to them. Haven't used this guy in a little bit. Ow. that's a way to get more rounded, wind sandblasted rocks. Actually, probably a semi-rigid kind of brush could work for that too. Well, let's see, it's almost 7:30. I should probably eat some food at some point today, so let me start wrapping this up. I'll just coat this piece real quick. Oh, you know, it'd be perfect for those divots. Mr. Acetone. See if I can manage to spill this all over my crotch again. I'll do a little bit of flicking just to get that Okay. Just gonna blast this on super rough. Hey, hon. Uh-huh. What is said? I don't know. Yeah. I do not care for pumpkin pie, but there's plenty of sweets for me. Pumpkin cheese, cream cheese streusel. Huh. Does streusel mean it's got like the crumb bits on top? I think we have tons of sweet stuff. I don't think we need to. Oh. Yeah, I could always go tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Alright, love you too. Bye. Yeah, it's dungeon music from Zelda 2. The most underrated Zelda game. The Adventure of Link. Where they decided to fix the problem of having the game named after not the character you play. And then promptly forgot that lesson. See, this little area where I was experimenting to try to reproduce that, kind of close, but it's just too blumpy. It doesn't have that nice sharpness that this has. At least as far as I can tell. Maybe after I get the dry brush on there, it'll just kind of appear. That'd be awesome. But I'm not counting on it. What happened to... Oh, wait, this. Fishers? No, I know the word fishers, and it was a word that I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I think it's a word we've all heard before, but it's, the context is different enough that I was like, what was I like? I was like, I'm gonna forget this word. That's what I was like. I'm definitely gonna win the messiest table award. The only thing that comes to mind is joints, but that's probably wrong, and I'm too tired. I think it was joints. I think you're right. And it's quite possible that my description is what is making that not quite a match. Because again, I'm importing my conception of how things are working when minerals grow and stuff. This course does not have a ton of graphics, which would help me greatly if it did. So yeah, I could just be describing the process totally wrong. But yeah, I think it is joints, is when the clumps grow together, the mineral clumps grow together, that where the two clumps meet is a joint. But I do want to watch that lecture again just to double check that. I'll let you know tomorrow. I mean, it seems simple, but when you say the word joints, the first thing I think of is movable pieces on a animal or a robot where pieces bend next to each other or rotate in a cuff or whatever. Like, those are joints to me. And despite being born on 420, the last thing that comes to mind when I hear joints is marijuana. You know, really dropped the ball on that one. Oh hey everyone, my website's working. If anyone would like to do me a favor and go to breathoflifedev.com and just click on random things there and tell me if any shenanigans happen, like if your browser is like, uh-oh, danger. You won't actually be in danger, but I think the problem finally got fixed. I clicked on every link that I think exists, but one thing I know from software development is all the things you think exist is not all the things that are. So if anyone wants to do me a favor and check out breathoflifedev.com, that's DEV, that'd be super cool. Even if you go to breathoflifeart.com, it should redirect you to Breath of Life Dev safely, in theory. Alright, I think we're making progress here. I think I'm learning stuff slowly but surely. I mean, not that slowly. Well, I have an accelerated sense of time because I've been able to spend a ton of time on art since I took the week off. I've been spending the last 4 days straight either getting art supplies or doing art, so. Hey, you have a good night too. Oh, seeing Wreck-It Ralph 2. I didn't know that was coming out. I definitely want to see that. We're gonna see Fantastic Beasts with my parents when they come up, and I don't know. Maybe we'll make it a doubleheader and see Wreck-It Ralph 2. I don't think Heather's body would be able to handle that. She can barely sit in a movie theater seat for more than a couple minutes without pain. Alright. Put this here. Wash. Are there any other brushes that need to be washed? This little guy. Oh, I do have one more thing to do. Hovering over music on the main page of the website shifts the rest of the website, whereas the other headers don't. Huh. That's weird. I will look into that. Thanks. In case you're still here, are you on mobile or desktop? And are you using Chrome or something terrible? Got my acetone out. You can see this has little embedded bits of foam where I just kind of mixed it in to the material. So now I can just dissolve away that foam and I have some nice scarring and pitting on my ruins. For some reason this batch turned out very weak. I wonder what. The only difference is I didn't mix any pigment in with it as far as I know. Maybe it just hasn't sat long enough and it was cold in the garage. Yeah, it's pretty weak. I'm gonna be lucky to get this out without breaking. Luck achieved. This is freeform air. That's what I made this out of. I'll dab off all the little flakes on my incredible 2006 jacket. there it is. Thought you could hide from me. Alright. I think it's time to call it for today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. I plan on starting the stream as soon as I wake up and just going until I pass out. Or until it's time to start making food or something. So, yeah, that'll be it for today. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. And for the third time, I mean it this time, I'll see you tomorrow.